So far we have investigated the main reason and the main target of sensor fusion in eHealth, and we have seen how those targets can be reached through what we call the sensor integration systems. So I would like to go more in deep into the application of sensor fusion, and especially with respect to the three main fields we have cited at the beginning. So smart assisted living, health monitoring, patient health monitoring, and sport monitoring. So let's start with the smart assisted living. As we said many times during this lecture, smart assisted living is kind of broader area which deals all the technologies to assist fragile people and senior people in their own environment. So in smart assisted living, sensor fusion is mostly applied to what we call behavioral monitoring. Basically, so our target is to spot health and behavioral anomalies in a smart home environment. And we can do this through a large variety of sensors. Namely, if you remember, the example we used to describe the Bayesian network was indeed an application, a smart sitting living application of sensor fusion. In that case, we use a PIR and a microphone to detect the presence of a person in a given room. So it was a really simple task, but still really valuable if you think that you could integrate such an algorithm in a monitoring system for smart home environments. Actually, what can be done in a more advanced way is integrating this environmental sensor with other type of sensors such as a smartwatch and, for example, a textile sensor like a smart socks, to have a complete track of all the activity the senior person has done all over the day and all over the time that has been monitoring. In this way, we can recognize a certain pattern, the behavior, and we can trigger an anomaly if the behavior of that, if the activity detected does not belong to that pattern. Other application can concern, for example, the possibility of spotting health problem, like the person that go too many times in bathroom, or presence of intruder, loss of consciousness, and anomalies that which can trigger an alarm if detected. So this is a really life-saving application. So the second main application is sport monitoring. In this field, we have a completely different type of target. So if in the smart assisted living, what we want to do most of the time is activity recognition and anomaly detection. In this case, the great impact of sensor fusion is around performance assessment. So in this case, we want to estimate the level of performances of a movement or a defined sport act. So for this reason, the target are mainly two. First of all, we have medium level to professional athlete, and on the other hand, we can have some rehabilitation patient. So type of sensor used are, of course, most wearable sensor. So we have all the ECG related sensor mounted in a smartwatch or on the chest. We can have IMU sensor, which is usually integrated with the smartwatch, but we have, for example, EMG sensors that are able to have an estimation of the muscular activity and the muscular activation, and wearable pulse oximeter to monitor the oxygenation level on the blood, and textile sensors put on the shoes to have, for example, the estimation of the pressure that we are putting on the shoes, and at the end, some electrochemical sensor for skin and sweat analysis.
what happened at the end of the day is usually we have a really minor set of sensors. If you think, for example, when I said medium level athlete, nowadays all the runners use a smartwatch to track their own activity. This smartwatch uses exactly a sensor fusion to track the path the runner did, measure the velocity, have some quantitative parameter like such as the cadence, the swing, and stance, and all these kind of parameters that can be used to assess the performances and athletic level of the sportsman. So in the same set of applications related to sport monitoring, we can include in a broad sense motion rehabilitation and patient rehabilitation. If you think in this case, the goal is always the same, have an assessment of the performances, but the subject is completely different. So let's imagine, for example, that we have a patient that is taking a physiotherapy path, a physiotherapy program, and we want to estimate how much this physiotherapy is affecting him, not only in a qualitative way, but also in a quantitative way. For example, we would be interested in how much this patient correctly execute a certain movement, maybe after rehabilitation of after a stroke, or for example, how much the heart is recovered from a delicate surgery operation. So in few words, the sensors are the same, the technology is the same, the goal is the same, but the subject is completely different. So the last application, and probably the most interesting one, is patient monitoring and diagnostic. So given the wideness of such a field, I decided to divide this in three main levels. The level 0 is actually what we have nowadays, and it is the use of sensor fusion in a sensor integration system to just track the health parameters that we have. So we can track our heart rate, we can track our motion activities, just walking, running, we can track our oxygenation level, and actually these sensor integration systems are just bigger storage of information that are then visualized and analyzed by a human at the end of the day. So level 0 of diagnostic does not require any kind of sensor fusion, but a simple and basic sensor integration is more than enough. Actually, the sensor fusion is required as a key enabler in the level 1, so what we call anomaly detection and alarm detection. Basically, in this level of diagnostic, what we want is the possibility of detecting particular anomalous status, so status that does not belong to the usual pattern, the usual behavior in some sense of the person. This can be, for example, loss of consciousness, heartbreak, car accident. In this case, as only one sensor is of course not enough to detect such anomaly. So we need sensor fusion to have a consistent assessment. The example of the heart attack detection I did multiple times over the presentation is of course a really good example of level 1 of diagnostic. So the main reason why this is not the last level of patient monitoring and diagnostic is the fact that in this case we are considering a really serious anomalous status that threats the life of the patient in that specific moment or in a really short term. Okay, the level 2 actually is something different. So what we call advanced and pervasive diagnostic, and actually this is the real change of paradigm of the future medicine. In this case, the goal is, as in level 1, the early detection of anomalous state, but in this case we're talking about diseases and general health problems. So let's imagine how much information all these kind of sensors attached to your body give about your health status. think about how much information can be stored in a time series of, I don't know, the level of oxygenation of your blood during the day. So this kind of data, and I want to underline this fact, have been never available to clinicians before, because there wasn't the possibility to have such frequent measurement of a patient in a so reduced time frame. And by fusing all this information coming from the different sensors and merge all this fused information with a deep clinical story of the patient, what we can do in a not so long-term future would be the possibility of have an early detection of general disease and health problems. And with this term, I mean, for example, having the possibility to forecast some type of cancers, some types of genetic disease. Of course, the frameworks required in this case are, way more complex than just sensor fusion. But if you think having a Bayesian network like the one we use in the example in the previous lecture, we can build a system that is actually able to forecast this kind of status. So, of course, this is, as I said before, a mere speculation. There is no guarantee that this will happen, but at least there is the possibility that this future will soon come.